can only say how moved I am and how grateful I am to receive this award from such a marvelous organization and with such a remarkable direction and purpose, and from such wonderful people that we are getting to know, admire, love, and it's really very, very moving and fantastic to be here, ladies and gentlemen. So first, a thank you, a great thank you. Andre, that was a wonderful laudatio, and you gave a biography more beautifully and succinctly than ever. One sentence summed up 90% of my life. He ran from the airport just in time. And you caught the point. It's true that the world is still a big place, and my great fortune is to serve the United Nations during the past 17 years. And one thing you learn from the United Nations is there are a lot of countries in the world, 193, and it's a great pleasure and honor to visit them, but it means always running from the airport. And I say that in part because we're very often running to Vienna these days, as you know. This is the second trip in, I think, 6 weeks, and the third in 12 weeks, and the fourth in, I'd say, maybe the last 5 months, because this is a very remarkable and very special place. And the more we come, the more we treasure being here. Today started with a breakfast with President Fisher, who is a most remarkable person, leader, historian, gentleman, and an exemplar of the finest of not only this country, but of Europe, and a magnificent person. And I'm lucky to be engaged in research projects here and with a widening net of friends and colleagues, and working heavily at IASA, the International Institute of Applied Systems Analysis in Luxembourg, just a few minutes out of Vienna. And it will bring us often to be with you in the coming years, and to be able to learn from you and to share the wonderful talent here. Now, flying in from someplace at the last minute seems to be the occupational norm of many people these days, and special, incredible gratitude to Friedrich Kleinhappel and Andreas Voike, who flew in just this today from New York, where they were concertizing to huge acclaim. Could we give them another hand, please, for the... Let me say a word about our time and our moment and our challenge. And I'll say it from actually the beginning of this week for us, which was a little bit away from here in Wittenberg, Germany, where we were visiting Wittenberg on another anniversary occasion, the 500th anniversary of Martin Luther, Martin Luther's 95 Theses. And for that occasion and a number of events in the last couple of years that I've been privileged to be part of, I've come to look at that period 500 years ago as a period quite like ours in a lot of ways, and both startling and dramatic, and a period we can learn from by looking back at that moment. That too was a period of globalization. In fact, the first real globalization. You know that 500 years ago was in the immediate aftermath of the two great voyages that opened the true world globalization of Columbus and da Gama. I'm sure you know that Columbus was an economist. It's said that there are three ways to know that. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know where he was when he got there. And he had done it on a government grant. So in the aftermath of Columbus and da Gama, and with the advent of the internet of that time, which was Gutenberg's printing press, which had quickly spread throughout Europe just in the immediate decades after Gutenberg's invention of movable type, the world was in a period of complete transformation, a globalization, an upheaval, new ideas, an opening of the mind more dramatically, and of course, politics. And it's arguable, I think it is actually a defensible proposition, that the decade 500 years ago, the counterpart of our decade, may have been the most remarkable intellectual few years of human history, or modern human history. In 1511, so this decade 500 years ago, Raphael completed the School of Athens in the stanzas of the Vatican. And the next year, Michelangelo completed the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And the year after that, Machiavelli circulated the first draft of The Prince, though it would not be formally published for 2 decades after. And the year after that, in 1514, Copernicus circulated the first draft of heliocentrism. The year after that, Erasmus published In Praise of Folly. The year after that, Thomas More published Utopia. And the year after that, this year, 1517, 500 years ago, Luther posted the 95 Theses. That's not bad for 6 years of intellectual life and ferment. And I do think that it was not only the work of unimaginable genius of that time, but it was the genius that was prodded and spurred and challenged by this opening of globalization, by discoveries that had seemed utterly unthinkable, that a whole new world, new races of people, places completely unknown, not mentioned in the Bible, could suddenly appear to humanity. And with a network of universities already established that could disseminate this information with remarkable speed. It was ideas in the lead. So Wittenberg was a new university town, and Luther was, like many academics, making trouble and publishing ideas, and in debate with Erasmus. Copernicus was at university and had toured universities of Europe to spread his knowledge. And Thomas More went to Leuven for the university town where he published Utopia. I think our age is similar. We are in a new globalization. We are in the dramatic realization that we are in each other's faces more intensively, more connected, and that's 7.5 billion of us now on this very crowded planet. We are in the new media era. Our Gutenberg's press, of course, is the internet, which brings us a world of information and misinformation and disinformation at astounding rate every day. And we are facing a scale of unprecedented challenges. It is true, no doubt, that every generation, certainly since the Industrial Revolution, has faced a pace of change and upheaval that has been alarming and unprecedented, maybe like the upheaval after Columbus and da Gama. And we've not handled it all that well, as we know. From 1800 onward, too many accidents, too many disasters of a kind that we can't afford anymore. There can be no wrong turns again of the scale that we had before, because there will be no right turns after that. We're in a new era, even by the standards of modern history. President Kennedy, who you can guess I quote constantly because you've already heard from him twice, said in his inaugural address, in defining our modern age, for mankind holds in his mortal hands the ability to end all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And I think that is our existential reality that makes our challenges all the more astounding and unprecedented. We spent a wonderful afternoon with Professor Sarah Spiekerman, who's here, and Professor Johannes Hopp, a wonderful afternoon at the University of Vienna discussing the new artificial intelligence and information technologies and all of the pluses and minuses that one could imagine from them. And it was really a scintillating, unique discussion. I haven't been in such an intense and invigorating discussion like that that I can recall. But that technology, as one example, really does bring within reach the realistic idea that we could end all poverty in our time. And Sonia, my partner, my wife, my colleague in all that we do, is leading an effort, for example, by putting information into the hands of community health workers on a smartphone suitably programmed, can provide life-saving health care to places that wouldn't have a chance to have a doctor anywhere nearby. But now where lives are being saved, malaria is under control, AIDS is being treated, mothers are going for antenatal visits, children are receiving their immunizations, and we have a realistic chance to end the AIDS epidemic through a systematic identification of infected individuals and rapid treatment following that. And this is what is possible in our world today. President Kennedy was ahead of his time on many things, and he was literally correct when he said that we can end all forms of human poverty. What perhaps he could not imagine, because he was, of course, discussing thermonuclear weapons and the risks of self-annihilation, is that his statement that we could end all forms of human life would have even more ways of dreadful realization just 50 years onward. And that, as we know now, in a way that we could not have known nor anticipated because of our lapse of response, the profound environmental crisis that we have built and that we have so far been unable to address, even as the evidence becomes so dramatic and stark. We've had 5 massive hurricanes in a row in the past 6 weeks in our part of the world. California had the worst forest fires in its history because of the extreme drought and the heat waves that opened up this incredible vulnerability. Of course, Europe had massive forest fires and heat waves in the summer of 2017. And yet we still don't move, especially in my country, where the corruption of politics is so deep. Actually, I don't know. I was going to say that President Trump is not as dumb as he looks. I don't know. But I will say that he is more corrupt, and the political system is more corrupt than you can imagine. And the reason why he's announced pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement is that the oil industry has bought the Republican Party in the US Congress. They have paid for them. They have threatened those who don't go in line. You will face opposition in the next Republican primaries. You will stay in line or you will face the end of your career. And if you stay in line, we will fund your campaigns and we will keep you in power. And it's that kind of politics, Andre already referred to it, that all over the world keeps very narrow interests, yet very powerful interests, directing affairs in ways that are so counter to our need, our urgency, the common interest. I was grateful to Marcus Mayer for, where's Marcus? In the theater, for his beautiful rendering. But I was especially grateful, though I didn't understand it in German, the Aristotle. I think he read Aristotle. It's listed on the program, but I just wanted to say, and I'll end here, that Aristotle invented political science for the Western world in a wonderful, wonderful book, probably the best book ever written on politics, called The Politics, 2,300 years ago. And for Aristotle, there was no doubt that political science was a moral science. In fact, the two were inextricably linked. The Politics is a book of ethics, and it's to be read alongside its companion volume, the Nicomachean Ethics, because Aristotle was interested not in who would win and who would lose, but how to promote the common interest. And that was the defining element of Aristotle, how to enable society to thrive, to achieve what he and the Greeks called eudaimonia. And that is the kind of politics we need. When Andre said that we must be involved in politics, I can't even imagine now a divorce from politics, especially in that sense. Politics is not just battle over this interest or that interest. In fact, it's that conception of politics that is in a way so debilitating for us in the United States and in much of our politics. Politics should be understood in the Aristotelian sense as the common pursuit of the common good. And we need a global politics now for not only our well-being, not only for the moral charge on us that if you can end extreme poverty and you fail to do so, it's all the more outrageous that we don't act. But we need politics in the Aristotelian sense to save ourselves now. We need politics for the common good and for the common survival. And GLOBART, by bringing together the wisdom and the arts and the spirit of humanity at the core, is exactly the inspiration and the motivation and the guidance and the support that all of us together need so we can move forward and do the work that together we need to do. So thank you so much for this wonderful award, and I'm so grateful to be among friends and so many people that I admire so greatly, and I thank you.